What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Buffalo Commander. How's it going, Kevin?
Good, man. How are you, Alex?
Good. Please remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, and comment.
Please.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to be the free agency week 1 recap. I do want to get into a little bit of the happenings today because there's a pretty big deal that happened today. So I want to share screen on that. Did you want to talk about anything first before we get into that?
Just one thing.
Yeah.
Did you see the trailer to that new show Fallout that I told you about? The video is
No.
based on the video game. You got to
No.
check it out, man. I think
I
it's going
haven't
to be
done
really
it.
good. It comes on Prime
Okay.
and sci-fi. I know you're a sci-fi guy like me, Alex.
Yeah.
It looks really cool to me. So
Okay.
it has that one dude that's like the bad guy in Justified. And he was
Yeah.
also Baby Billy
Yeah, no, Baby Billy.
from Righteous Gemstones, Baby
Yeah.
Billy Bible Bombers.
He's also the cross dresser in what's it called? Sons of Anarchy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, check it out, dude. I think
Yeah.
you're gonna like it. Now I want you to get your opinion. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll take it out. All right, cool. All right, so let me share screen real quick. I want to get into a couple of these news and notes for the day around the NFL. And what I want to do, well, I think we should do anyway, is going forward, we probably should go into stuff like this as we start, just to give a brief overview. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but
Sure.
Aaron Donald retired today. So that's a pretty big deal.
I didn't
10
see
years.
that. Okay.
Yep. 10 years in the league. I think that's a pretty big deal. He's the best defensive tackle and maybe the best defensive player of my generation or our generation for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know who would be better. He's the most dominant player I've ever seen on the defensive line, no matter the position or not. So,
Yeah.
he's instant Hall of Famer when he's eligible. So I thought it was pretty neat to go into. Quarterbacks rejoice, right? And then there was a draft trade Ian Rappaport reported this morning with the Vikings getting back into the back end of the first round and still keeping their early first round pick. They got picks number 23 and 232, and Houston Houston got 42, 188, and a second rounder next year, which I thought was like a super underpay to get up to that spot. Don't you think? Like that's like nothing.
Didn't seem like that much.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously it's for a trade up for a quarterback. I'm looking at it going, damn, well, maybe Buffalo should just give up a second next year and 2/5 this year and a fourth and number 28 and get back to 9 because Chicago needs the picks, right? So I almost think that would be a reasonable choice at this point, given how much it looks like the value of the picks are. So I don't know. I thought that was a super underpay, but
so they already have a pick at 11, right? The Vikings.
yes. So that's the whole thing. They accumulated a second first round pick, which indicates that they're probably going to move up in the draft for their quarterback, which I think was on the board before, but not a definite guarantee. You know what I mean?
You mean they're going to package these picks somehow to move up?
Yeah. My thought is that you package the picks,
okay,
and get up to like, I don't know, Tennessee at 7.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or you could do what Move the Sticks and Bucky Brooks did earlier, which is on the screen. They were floating a scenario about Washington falls back or falls in love with like a JJ or a Bo Nix or a Penix, trades back from 2 to 11 with the Vikings.
Yeah.
And then the Vikings draft Drake May.
No way.
Micah, and it says Washington also has the ammo to trade up as high as 5 in addition to going back. So like, for instance, going from 11 back to 5, but then that doesn't really change much. You're still passing up on the top 3 quarterbacks. What do you think about that? Is that a no-go for you?
I mean, I don't want that to happen. And yeah, I don't think that's going to happen either.
So I don't either.
I think that we're going to, no, I don't think we're going to give up our pick.
No, I don't think so either. I think at best what this still tells me is that they are very much in love with JJ McCarthy as quarterback 4.
Yeah.
And they'll move up to, because I think the Patriots are now going to take a quarterback at 3. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think there was some doubt at one point, but I don't think they get out of that pick now. So we're talking about a move up to maybe Arizona at 4. or Giants at 5, but I don't think the Giants are going to want to give that up. I'm sorry, that's the Chargers. The Giants are 6.
I think they have to jump in front of the Giants personally.
Me too. But how high do you go? I think
Yeah.
4 is the most logical place, right?
Right.
So that's kind of how I feel about that. I think it's for JJ. I think they've now been kind of come to grips with JJ being the potential choice. I'm going to stop sharing here. Come back to our screen.
Yeah.
What happened to our faces? We were close before. I feel like we got close. I want to see that muscle shirt on you, bro.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
many
man.
people do.
Absolutely. So what we want to go into today is Buffalo and Washington's decisions over the last 5 days as a recap of what we've done. I'm going to go into Buffalo first just because I think it's much less and much easier to speak about. I don't have anything prepared for that outside of my notes. So what I want to do is kind of get into that a little bit here and scan through my own notes of just kind of how I feel about it and what we did. So first things first, we started off free agency by freeing up some space. Von Miller and Dawson Knox both freed up some cap space by taking renegotiations or pay cuts. So Vaughn agreed to take less money guaranteed in exchange for a higher ceiling on production this year, which is shocking to me for a player that already has his money, willing to curb back and say, hey, I'll do this for the team. That makes me think very differently about Von Miller, generally speaking, as it relates to him as a teammate. I never thought he was a bad teammate, but you rarely see high-end players at the end of their career willing to do this. So he's betting on himself, so to speak, and we can take the lower cap hit this year.
Right.
And then Dawson Knox took one, but he's always been I think he knows his role at this point is not as tight end one anymore. And he's happy with how much he's making, and he's willing to be a team player. He also has incentives to make his go up too. So that's pretty much where it came from. We also did a restructure on Josh Allen. So that happened. And then we restructured. I'm trying to think who else got a restructure. Deion Dawkins was extended also to free up some space, which was a whole fiasco on Monday. He basically said a goodbye letter to Bills Mafia on Monday. And then 30 seconds later said, just kidding, I'm signing an extension. So everybody thought we were losing our franchise left tackle.
That's
and then all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden we're sitting here with like, what? Okay. I was literally in the shower listening to the radio and going, all right, well, they cut him. They should have traded him. I don't know why they would cut him because he has value. And then like when I got out of the shower to shave, all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait, we're wrong. We shouldn't have been reporting this. This is why we shouldn't be listening to all these tweets. So that happened. So essentially what we've got here with Buffalo is most of what we did was restocking. So first things first, we brought in Mitch Trubisky and Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson came back to fill in our RB2, I think RB2 role. We're going to probably get a late round pick to do the power back role. And then Mitch Trubisky to be our new backup. Which I'm whatever about both of those decisions. Curtis Samuel was signed yesterday, in addition to Matt Collins the day before.
Yeah.
I was okay with Matt Collins just being the wide receiver 4 and then going to the draft and getting 2 guys. But Curtis Samuel definitely increases our value at that spot quite substantially as a wide receiver 3 or 4. What do you think about that since he just came from Washington? How do you feel about him as a player?
Yeah. Actually that's funny because in my last State of the Union Commanders, I mentioned him and I had mentioned that I thought he would probably end up somewhere like the Bills or the Chiefs, somebody that can overpay a little bit for him.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about how much, but it's essentially, $10 million a year for that it's $30 million for 3 years.
It's 8 with It's 8 with ability to get to 10. Okay. So it's $8 million. That was another question I had about it that I didn't really love was the price point. But wide receivers have just gotten so expensive. I guess I think
we really wanted to probably hold on to him because he is really good. He had a great season last year. He stayed healthy. I just knew that we probably wouldn't want to spend as much as we'd need to spend. And he's better off with a team where they are looking for that particular type of player to fill a need, a very special need. I mean, he's awesome around the line of scrimmage because you can use him almost like a running back
Yeah,
sometimes.
like orbit motions and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he's also great for the big passes too. I mean, he's
Yeah.
just I think you guys are going to love him. I think it was worth it.
Mhm.
And I think it fills that role that maybe they were looking for.
So this is my only concern. And I like the player. I really do. I like him as his fit. I like what he does and provides. He provides a yak element that we don't have outside of Shakir.
Big time.
He's the fastest player on our team for day one. He ran a 4.31 in the 40. He's super duper fast. I don't think we've had a guy that fast maybe ever on Buffalo. So he does those things. That's great. My concern is that we still need a young up and coming wide receiver 2 on the boundary to take over for Diggs in 2 years and also to be wide receiver 2 today. And I worry that this prevents or kicks that can down the road further, which is a problem for me if that's how they're thinking. Now, they may not. They may just be like, we're going to still draft a wide receiver in round 1.
Well, I was going to say, are you saying that that maybe they may not draft a wide receiver at their first round pick now? Because I know that's what we were thinking.
Well, there's a lot of people. The whole thing is Bills Mafia loses their damn minds as soon as we sign anyone that's above average, right? This is the reality. Curtis Samuel's never had over 850 yards in his career. 851 was his best year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's fine. I mean, as a wide receiver 3, perfect.
Where did he come from?
Carolina and Washington. So the quarterback play was low, right? I get that. But people are online legitimately losing their minds saying he should be a wide receiver boundary X receiver on the outside. And I'm like, dude, no. Like he can do those things. I had a guy tell me yesterday on X that he's going to be our number 2 receiver. We're paying him that way, which concerns me. And he's one of these guys that can play on the outside full time. He said that he only ran 48% on the outside his career. I'm like, yeah, that's because you're adding in the first 3 years. The last 5 years, he's been on the out in the boundary. I'm sorry, in the slot, 71% of the time for 4 of those 5 years. 1 year, he was at 48% in the slot. This is a data I got yesterday, so I didn't look it up, but I got it from Cover One. So that 1 year that he was at 48%, which is lower than usual, was in Washington the first year when he got hurt and only played 4 games. So that doesn't count. That's an outlier. He's a slot wide receiver. The other concern is Shakir is really coming on, and I don't want it to take targets from him. But I think the mindset with the team is like, damn the targets. Whoever's open is going to be open. Our job is to confuse defenses, not to placate people's targets. So
I just think that I haven't thought about anything you said, and that's a good point. It might be that, you know what, this might mean that because they're paying that amount of money, they are seeing him as a number 2. But I kind of lean toward what you just said, which is, you know what, at the end of the day, this guy's super talented. He's been on 2 teams that were crappy. They didn't know how to utilize him. But the guy is clearly talented, even with the terrible quarterback play of Sam Howell this past season. He had amazing catches. He did a lot of great things. And I think that in this type of offense, especially with Josh Allen and their charisma that maybe they're going to have together, you're going to see those numbers go up a lot, regardless of how he's used, whether it's number 2 or the slot or whatever.
Sure. And I think that's kind of the idea, right? Like wide receivers are expensive. If you want a good one, you have to pay for it. Odds on he's actually getting paid like a high-end 3, a low-end 2. And that's probably their mindset is like, he's a Swiss Army knife. Let's throw him into the offense and let's just do work, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I answer this for me, you know, the last few seasons, have they had that type of wide receiver that, you know, obviously you guys probably run wide receiver screens and that, but it's more like he's running and, you know, next thing you know, he's catching it, or it's a quick flip to him, or it's a reverse.
He's doing jet sweeps and things like
that.
Jet
sweep. Yeah.
So we had Isaiah McKenzie doing that, but he's slower than Samuel, smaller than Samuel. He's just a water bug. So yeah and no, like I guess Shakir could do it, but I don't really think that's where he's best suited.
And is that even part of your game, or do you think it could be? I mean,
it became part of our game with Joe Brady last year.
Okay. And then this might be why that they want somebody dynamic for that particular role. And like I've said, I really think a team was going to pick this dude for a very particular role. So
And he played with Brady before too in Carolina. So that was his OC.
okay,
So it was probably a
that's good to know
target of some
too.
sort.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
all right. I don't want to spend too much time on that. I want to move on.
All right.
Matt Collins, just quick. I thought he'd be wide receiver 4. I think he's competing for wide receiver 5 now. He's great on special teams, a really good blocker. He does all the things Gabe Davis did, but not being put into a wide receiver 2 role. I think he probably, this is going to be unpopular. I think if he played in Gabe's role for the last 4 years, he would have done the same thing that Gabe did for us for those 4 years. And we'd be talking about
Jaguars
them in reverse.
overpaid and made a mistake trying to make that dude.
No, they did a great job. Okay. Gonna be your wide receiver 1. Go with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so Quentin Morris, he's our tight end 3. We brought him in. We like to have 3 tight ends rostered. He's a good 3rd tight end. That's basically what that is. And he's been on the team.
Got it.
Leave him there. Deion Dawkins did his extension. There's that. I'm looking at my notes right now, so if I'm not looking at the screen very well. David Edwards extended. We talked about this on Black Wednesday last week. Mitch Morse is gone. Connor McGovern's going to be the center now. He's done that before. I went and did some more research after that call. He actually played center like 80 snaps 2 years ago for Dallas. One of them was against Washington, the game I actually went to up in Washington, where they kicked your butts. So,
shocker.
Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all kicked their butts. Sorry, y'all beat them that game. So it was bad. Y'all beat Dallas up. And then David Edwards is the new left guard. So I can see us filling in another reserve guard in free agency. I don't see them putting any more wide receivers out there, but I can see another guard being put in there and maybe an RB3, as we were talking about running back earlier. Defensive end, we re-signed AJ Epinesa. I think that was vital to bring him back. He's a great, in my opinion, he's a really good defensive end 3, and he's on a trend up street. So I think he had his best year last year, and I do think that he'll continue to trend up based on his skill set. And now I think he's finally kind of grown into his body. But I do see another vet coming in, maybe a Shaq Lawson, maybe even like a guy like a Yannick Ngakoue who can be a situational pass rusher. Daquan Jones, big deal to we re-signed him. We needed a 1-tech defensive tackle. He's that guy. He was great last year until he got hurt. He's healthy now. We'll be fine with that. We do need depth there. I do see some more depth signings coming. The next one, Nicholas Morrow. He's a reserve linebacker. He started for Philly almost all last year with mixed results. Most in Philly not liking him because their defense wasn't good. But in the end, he's a decent 3rd or 4th linebacker, and that's really what he's going to be for us, maybe even 5th. And he'll push Dorian Williams, our rookie last year, probably for playing time. And then Cam Lewis was re-signed as a safety, and so was Taylor Rapp as a safety. I think it's guaranteed Taylor Rapp starts at the strong safety, but at free safety, Cam Lewis, I guess, has a chance to start based on what he said on One Bills Live yesterday. I don't love that idea. I think we still need to go out and get another free safety to fill that spot. And I do think that guys like maybe like a Mike Edwards would be a good spot from KC. I wanted Cam Curl, and he didn't get signed for that much last night, like $6.5 million.
No, I was going to.
And I'm like, why are we not putting bids on that guy? Maybe we did and he didn't want to be here.
I don't think the league sees him as good as he
thinks he is.
He thinks he is, and
PFF thinks he's good
too, and obviously what Adam Peters thought too.
Yeah, PFF thinks he's damn good.
Yeah, but if you really watch him play, I get it. It's hard to really fudge those type of numbers on PFF. They're really good, trustworthy numbers. But anyway, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, it's about later. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I think we have at least one starting safety now, and then potentially, like I said, Cam Lewis he's been on the team for 3 or 4 years now, and he has some talent. I think it hurt him, the whole thing where he got mossed by Justin Jefferson a couple years ago. He was in good position on that play. He just got out jumped, and he got out. He should have knocked it down instead of trying to pick it.
Right.
And that's one of the things with him. He's not very big, so he's 5'9" and goes up and gets it. There's not a lot of guys, safeties with that physical profile. So we'll see if he ends up being the guy. If he wins it, he wins it. But I do think we need a vet
and
brought
he's
in.
Still available, right?
Who? Huh?
That dude from the Chiefs?
Yeah, Mike Edwards is still available. He'll be cheap, like a $4 to $5 million guy, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's a fit for what we do as a defense. I liked him coming out of the draft, so he's a 3rd round pick or whatever when he came out. and went to Tampa Bay. He started one full season basically, and then was a reserve the rest of the time. Kansas City brought him in. He was a backup there too, but we did that with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poirier. We flipped them into starters eventually. So I could see that with him at a cheap price. I think that's kind of how we have to bargain bin dump a little here. So, all right. So I'm done with Buffalo. That's pretty much a recap. Get into Washington a little bit, man. I've got some questions for you about some of these players and what you think about them. I thought before you start, Washington, other than maybe Chicago, because they got Keenan Allen in a trade last night. Other than Chicago, I think Washington won free agency so far. So.
Yeah, and that's always really hard to say, to answer that, right? Because we don't really know until the season starts if we hit a home run. But as far as what we needed to fill and replace, yeah, I mean, we've done an incredible job. The overall arching theme, I guess, is that we have been really restrained. The general manager, Adam Peters, he hasn't gone bonkers, but he's doing really smart, really short deals with really good players that have It seems to me they either have something to prove because they want to go from a backup to a starter and have a bigger role, or maybe they're a seasoned vet with a little bit more left in the gauge and they're ready to go. And that's what I've seen so far, and it has been good. I mean, a lot of big names. So I'm just go down the list here. Austin Eckler. I'm not really surprised we didn't re-sign Antonio Gibbs. I figured that would probably happen, and I figured we could do better, and I feel like we definitely did with him. I mean, this dude, much better pass catcher. Not that Antonio Gibson was terrible. This guy's just much more dynamic, and it's only a 2-year deal. It's only $11 million. And what do you think?
I like the fit. He's kind of on the back. He's 29 years old.
Yeah.
He's on the back end of his career. He's not your RB1. I know some were talking about that on Sports Junkies one morning, but I don't think that's the case.
I mean, we've got Brian Robinson as
your starter.
We've got Chris Rodriguez, who I think he's going to get even more playing time this year.
He's going to do a lot with you lost with Samuel too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And obviously, you're combining a player really, which I love that. I think it's a great way to save money too. So
he can play.
I think you're absolutely right.
Good price. I think he got like $4.5 million a year. That's a damn good deal. Something like that. It was low.
Like that. Yeah.
I mean, that's a good ass deal.
Bobby Wagner. I mean, this dude, I was always hoping we'd get this guy even over the years. It's funny because actually was a rookie in 2012 when we had RG3, and he killed us in that game where RG3's knee turned into, Jello. And he was amazing. But so we've got him on a 1-year, $8.5 million deal. He's got a lot of connections with Dan Quinn. And he another one of these that just wants to be here because of Dan Quinn.
Yeah.
And I'm super pumped about that. Again, pretty cheap. We're not on a hook for a lot of money. It's short term. What do you think?
I think he's still a top 3 linebacker in football. I looked at all of his advanced metrics and PFF and all these different things, and he's still rated super duper high. He's still an amazing tackler. He's going to be a Hall of Fame linebacker one day.
Yep.
He's an inside linebacker, which is something you need. It lets Frankie Louvu, who's played some middle linebacker, play in probably his more natural role, being in the outside. And they can really play off each other. And I think it does a lot for Jamin Davis as a third linebacker to help him grow and learn a little bit and understand what it takes to be think about who's mentored that guy to this point. No, I mean, they're barely rosterable players, so he's going to learn a ton. And then when Wagner leaves next year, hopefully he just retires, he'll step into the spot, and you guys are good. So I love it. I think it was a great pick. It's maybe my favorite pickup that you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this next one I'm not a fan of, Marcus Mariota. So I wanted us to move on from Sam Howell, wanted us to get something for him, and that's what happened. And we can go into that a little bit too. Yeah. So we traded him away. I really wanted Jacoby Brissett. I just thought that he already did a great job here, and it's a fairly damn good quarterback anyways, and be perfect with that young guy.
Right.
Maybe he doesn't have the same style as maybe a Jaden Daniels that's going to come in, and maybe that was the reasoning there. But I think that Jacoby Brissett only got like $6.5 million or something like that with the Patriots.
It wasn't much, but That's
$8
a
million.
lot for a backup.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's what I had mentioned is if it meant that we need to overpay a little bit, I think that role is important enough where you should have done that just for what he brings to the table. Obviously, they didn't feel that way. Now, Marcus Mariota apparently has a connection with Brian Johnson, who's on our staff.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons that Marcus Mariota said that he wanted to come here. I'm just not a fan. I mean, I don't, if for anybody else that's watched Hard Knocks, I mean, the dude quit on the team for Atlanta because he, didn't get the start and roll. I just rubbed me the wrong way.
That.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Really? I didn't know that.
They showed him throughout the process. He was fighting for that number one spot, didn't get it, and then he quit. And it's like, what a loser.
Yeah.
So, and not only that, I've seen him play a couple times. The Commanders had to play against him. I don't know if it was when he was with the Falcons. I want to say it was with a different team, but maybe not. But I just wasn't impressed with him. And we're bringing him in, and he even said that, even if his role is to kind of mentor the new guy, I mean, is this guy really somebody that we want to mentor? I don't see enough, experience, intelligence there to really fill that role.
I think
what do you think?
Things change. It's really hard probably as a first round pick to all of a sudden get demoted, and they say, well, this is not how the league views you anymore. And you feel like that's how you should be viewed. Right. So maybe he's changed and got to a point where he's like, well, I'm a backup now. He knows he's going there to be a backup.
True. But back to Brissett though. Maybe it's a situation where he might even, be competing for starting job. I have no idea.
Where'd he go? He got to
he went to New England.
New England.
And it was again $8 million. Maybe he just liked the people there and because that's where he had played before.
He got drafted.
It's all new, coaching staff. Yeah, but he was drafted there. Who knows? But I was disappointed. I really wanted him to stay on our team.
So
now go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, it's a backup quarterback.
It's backup, and you've mentioned this a couple times. At that point, your season's over anyways. Who cares?
Well, kind of. As a rookie, if you have a rookie starting, then you really rely
on that dude.
You want to see him play. If the season's not over, if you lose games, it's more over if you don't get to evaluate your player. So if he plays, it is kind of over for that year, and it kind of is disappointed at that point. But
and some people said on X, I've seen, this definitely means they're drafting Jaden Daniels because they can both run. And
I heard that comparison.
Yeah, whatever. So this is one I'm not really thrilled about. The other thing, because we talked about Sam Howell, do we want to go over that trade real quick?
Sure. Yeah.
I know.
Let's do it. No. This is going to be a longer episode than usual. So let's go into it.
So and correct me if I'm wrong, and you can probably say it. Why don't you say what it is? Because I'm going to mess it up. They basically gave Sam Howell.
So Sam in a 4th and a 6th for a 3rd and a 5th. Granted, the 3rd and 5th, from what I could tell, I don't have it in front of me right now, were very high picks in those rounds. And the 6th and the 4th were very low. So I'm guessing you'll have a 2nd 6th, maybe a 2nd 4th. I'm not sure. They didn't feel like it was like a 1-for-1. Like we're just trading 30 picks away. Like it was
for
a long way.
Big one to me, because I don't know. To me, to go from a what was it, a 6th to a 5th for one of them?
Yeah.
It's just trivial at that point.
So I'll say this. This is my line for drafts all the time. People say, oh, it was a 5th round pick, he's not going to make the team. I disagree. Our 5th round picks always make the team. 6th round picks rarely make the team, or they're like 50-50 at best. 7th, like 10% chance. So 5th round picks, I see that in the draft is the line. And everybody can go back and look if they're watching. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Go back and look at your draft history. 90% of the time, your 5th round picks make the football team because the team still views them as like, this is not no man's land. It's still like, we're almost 4th round picks, right? And 4th round picks always make the team typically. Not all the time, but I'd say 90% of the time, 5th round picks are on the squad. So I don't think it's negligible, but I do understand it's not a huge leap. You know what I mean?
No, and then the other one is a 3rd from a 4th. Okay, that's got some juice
Merit.
to it.
Yeah. It was like
that's
30
fair.
picks.
From
It was a long pick.
Yeah, I mean, it was from 100 and something to
20
78.
something to like
So
78. Yeah, it was like 30, 40 picks.
right. So that's a pretty big deal. And especially if Adam Peters already has a plan for that, maybe he's
Mhm.
looked at it and said, we really want this player, but we don't think he's going to be there at the 121 or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's worth it, or maybe, and I've seen this too, now that we have 2 third rounders, maybe we can move up again also and get, an edge player that
In the
we're
late second round, maybe even.
something like that, or
Yeah.
tackle or something like that.
I think that's worth it too. Like you have 2 early third round picks.
Right.
Those
So it
are
really took me a
important.
while to wrap my head around this, because I think when most people assume what's going to happen is he'd probably get dealt somewhere, and
Yep.
we'd be lucky if we got maybe a 4th or 5th rounder. And
Uh-huh.
in that situation, you're adding to your already draft picks. In my mind, although you bring up a good point, my thought was the more picks you have, the better. It's a crapshoot anyways, so you want to have as many opportunities to hit.
Just
But
swings. Yeah.
I do understand that, especially because we're going to be in the 3rd round again twice.
Mhm.
So that's pretty big.
I
And
agree.
I think Seattle overpaid a little bit. They seem to be really excited about Sam Howell. I know that sounds terrible,
They
but
like him a lot.
they like him a lot.
Especially
But
pre-draft.
he had a whole year sample size. He gets so nervous in the pocket. We don't have to go over that again, but I just feel
Yeah.
like I don't see that working out for him. Maybe he
Mhm.
could just play a backup role. But to me, a backup should not throw a lot of picks. You don't have to do anything great, but you don't want to throw a lot of picks.
Yeah.
Sam Howell throws a lot of picks.
Yeah. I think it
So-
could be a protection issue. And we'll get into that now, I
course.
think, right?
Yeah,
Let's talk about the protection, because I think you did quite a bit to improve the offensive line.
Well, Tyler,
I call him
Biotish.
badass.
I think it's Biotish, but I do like badass.
Badass.
So to me,
Badass.
To what you just said, I mean, to me, this is probably one of the most important signings. And if you're a true Commanders fan, you
He's a
understand
Pro Bowler.
that. Yeah, we've had an issue at center for a really long time. We have Ricky Stromberg. He was mostly at guard though, when he was injured a lot, and then we had Nick Gates that we brought in that was absolutely terrible. It's always been an issue, and it really starts with the center. The coaches even said they want to start from the middle and work themselves out as far as building this roster. I mean, what a great dude, and it's from our Cowboys. So
You're stealing from the Cowboys.
That's right. So no, this is a great pick. 3-year deal.
Mhm.
It's an average of $10 million per year. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. You got one of the better centers on the market. We talked about Mitch Morse from Buffalo potentially being an option. He's good too. I think he's better than Mitch Morse at this point in Mitch's career. He's younger than Mitch. Mitch is like 32, I think. And then you got Nick Allegretti too from Kansas City.
Nick Allegretti
Who was a backup there, but I think that the contract looks like that y'all want him to be the starting left guard. That's what it feels like to me. A low-end starting contract is what it feels like.
Yeah, 3 years. So one of the longer contracts that we did, $16 million. And sounds like
Low-end
a guy
starter.
that you've heard the story of how he had a broken arm the whole time in the Super Bowl, I think.
Yeah.
And mainly a backup, but he was really good when he came in. And this is one of those guys where we're like, okay, we want to take you to that next level that you want to be on. We're ready to commit to you.
Yep.
And I love those kind of deals. So I think we did good here too.
And he's tough. That's a big deal.
Oh yeah.
Your interior offensive line, you if you're soft, you're not going to make it. And in my opinion, with the way that your offensive line has performed over the last few years, you need a little bit of an injection of toughness and bully ball in that line. And the dude, I think he had torn his UCL, is what his elbow, which is like what happens to pitchers a lot of times, right?
Yeah,
I think that's what's it called? Is that Tommy John?
Tommy John.
Yeah, I think it's Tommy John. For a lineman, it's not that big of a deal. Allen had a slight tear. Purdy ruptured his. That was a big deal. And he came back, which is impressive for a quarterback.
Yeah.
But you don't often use that. It's useful, but it's not like there's not a lot of strain on it when you throw a football versus a baseball. There's a lot of strain on the UCL. So, but with a lineman, it doesn't really matter. He'll be fine. I think they're banking on toughness, and they like this tape. And if you can fight through that, like, dude's not going to miss games. I do think you need. So let's talk about left tackle before we get into some of these other guys. What do you want to happen now? Do you want Tyron Smith still? Is that your pick?
I mean, I still think we're going to end up signing him. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but yeah,
you might.
It doesn't mean we're not going to try to fill that need in the draft too, but I would love to have that guy.
What about Jonah Williams got signed? That was disappointing. I wanted him in Washington. He's younger and he can give you a little more runway on like future.
Right. Right.
And he kind of got screwed over by Cincinnati. And I think he was just like, I need to get out of here. And he went there.
Yeah. And I wanted, is it Connor?
Connor Williams.
Dolphins. Yeah.
So here, this is weird. Connor Williams is evident. This is what someone said on ESPN, that he tore his ACL so bad. I don't know how this is possible, that he's going to retire potentially. Now, it came out afterwards that was like out of context a little bit. More so like it was so bad that I wouldn't be shocked if he retires.
Okay.
However, if it's that bad, I don't know if you want him. Now, he's a lineman. He can recover and probably get back to normal this year if he doesn't. He got hurt like in, I think it was midseason. So
right.
But he's going to miss some time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good move. And you already got a center. He was playing center last year. So, and then you just got a left guard. So I think Connor Williams might be out of the question.
Right.
So you might just run with your current right guard and then sign a tackle and then just call it a day. So any other of these guys you want to talk about?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
So, we definitely worked on edge a little bit. We've got a couple of defensive end. I mean, we've got Dante Fowler, again, a big connection with Dan Quinn.
Former number 3 pick.
Former number 3. And then we've also got F.A. Abada, who's one of our own. We did have some talent. So
we re-signed him?
Signed him on a 1-year deal.
That's good. I like him.
Yep. I like him a lot too. And then we've got Dorrance Armstrong from the Cowboys. That's another 3-year deal. That one's $45 million. You and I talked about this one a little bit where, he wasn't necessarily one of the starting roles there. He was in the rotation, so to speak, but he's got great numbers. So I think he led the team in sacks or that position.
So, I think so. Context matters with this. One, right. So Commanders fans need to know that Dorrance Armstrong was second on the team in sacks the last 2 years. And he's had like, I think it was 8.5 and 7.5 sacks the last 2 years. Right. And it's like, okay, that's pretty good, but that's not like amazing. Well, you got to realize Micah Parsons is on the other side eating up all those sacks. Right. Yeah. And he's listed on the depth chart as a starter. Let's just make that clear. On ESPN.com, he's in other sources too. He's a starter. The problem is the way that Dallas plays defense is such a hybridization of the 4-3 front that a lot of times it looks more like a 3-4, and he's kind of rotation. And just keep in mind, defensive linemen on most teams now on good defenses, they're just rotating in and out all game. Like you rarely see guys over 67% snap count. So he was with a limited snap count-ish, right? He was still the second on the team in sacks. Okay. So if he has full-time role where he doesn't come off the field very often, like Washington likes to do, they don't rotate as often with their defense. All that could change this year with Dan Quinn. I see him, and Dan Quinn's handpicked this guy. Obviously, he sees potential as a defensive end 1. I think he's better as a defensive end 2, like he's been, where he's a starter, but he's like your secondary starter, and then you get an elite pass rusher somewhere else. So that could be coming, or y'all might just take the year off on that piece and say we'll get a elite pass rusher next year.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, we also got Clelin Ferrell. I mean, for what I can gather, and this is only a 1-year
another
deal.
number 3 pick, number 4.
Yeah, but this is now his 4th team, so it kind of makes you wonder. It sounds like
he's a bust. He's a reserve player.
Yeah, maybe just a guy reserve.
He's a jag. Yeah,
he's a jag. Yeah, so we'll see on that. That's defensive end. So I think this is my favorite pick as far as overall, and that's Luvu, linebacker.
Yeah.
I mean, PFF had him ranked number 1 linebacker available before free agency started, and we got him. I watched his interview. He seems really cool. He's kind of freaky athletic. He's really good at pass rushing too, which I'm excited about.
He's good in coverage too. And he's good in coverage.
And he's good in coverage.
Very good.
And he's, kind of fits what Dan Quinn wants. And then, by the way, I really think that Jamin Davis is going to have a really big role in this defense. He's going to be used a different way. Maybe they end up using it. And Kevin Sheehan said this isn't my idea, but he's right. You could easily see him being used as like the main pass rusher to attack the quarterback.
Like a Parsons.
Kind of like a Parsons. Exactly. Because the guy's really fast.
He's super athletic.
Huge. I think he's only 220 or something like that. But
I think he's like pushing I think he's like 230, but he ran like mid 4.4s at the combine. He's
and
fast.
he can go fast left to right too. That's one thing I
Mhm.
noticed about him. The
Yep.
only thing he was terrible about is coverage. He's horrible.
Yeah.
He got lost. He got, he just
He
not
could
as
learn
quick.
from Wagner and Luvu though in coverage because
100%.
Luvu isn't the athlete that Jamin Davis is. Not many people are. He
Yeah.
could use him as a platform of like, hey, Luvu, you're a pretty good athlete, but not amazing.
Yeah.
Can you teach me like the mental part of the game, right? Or where to be at all times and like having your head on a swivel and understanding what the formation presents to the defense. Let that dictate where your eyes go and where you are predicting the play to go, right?
Yep.
Versus I'm just reacting like a crazy animal out there. And then all of a sudden I'm
No.
out of position because they tricked me,
Yeah,
So-
no, I would not be surprised if Joe Witt, the defensive coordinator, and Dan Quinn both say, wow, this guy's really athletic. We can use this guy. We can find a role for him.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
the other thing, Jeremy Reeves, it's worth noting just because he's one of my favorite players. We did sign him on a 2-year deal. He's mainly special teams, but he's a Pro Bowler special teamer, all pro as well.
Mhm.
He did tear his ACL a couple years ago, but he came back and he's still amazing.
Yep.
Really big team presence. He's another one of those that I
Leadership.
think everybody's going to fall in love with. We
Mhm.
did get rid of Joey Sly. We've got Brandon McManus.
That's an
so we got a
upgrade.
kicker. It's definitely an upgrade.
Yeah.
What's weird though is if you look at the stats, Joey Sly actually is ranks at the top as far as one of our kickers
Mhm.
for the last 20 years. As
'Cause your
far as
kickers
his
aren't good.
percentage, it's crazy. The problem is he's one of those guys that would just miss an extra point at the most inopportune time.
Yeah.
And it would happen a lot,
Yeah.
But then he'd nail like a 56-yarder. It's the weirdest thing.
So McManus was 100% on field goals last year, under 48 yards.
Right.
And then he missed 7. I don't know what his percentage was over 50, but
He's
you know,
like-
50s are hard. They're not
Well,
gimmies.
Yeah, that's what it's actually. I thought it would sound better or look better when I looked that up, but he's like right at 50% for
From
field
50 to
goals
plus?
over fit. And I
That's
don't know if
good.
Is that
That's
good?
good.
I
That's
mean,
good. That's fine.
doesn't
That's
sound
fine.
great to me. To be
It
honest,
is. It's
but-
good. Unless you're what's his name? The kicker for the Baltimore Ravens. Hopkins.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're like him, most kickers are like 50% past 50.
Okay.
That's not bad.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah. You need
All
to
right.
got to be automatic when it matters. If
Sure.
if you're within the inside the 30-yard line, right? Everything
Right.
past the 30 is a 47 plus. 30-yard line is going to be gimmies, then that's perfect. Because that means you're on the high red zone area. You're hitting those kicks and making them. You're not shanking field goals when you're too close. There's a ton of kickers. My kicker does that. So I think that's good. I'd rather have that than be 100% on 50 and shaky inside of 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's better than the reverse,
Right. We also, and to go with our kicker, we have a new long snapper. I'm bringing this up because Ron Rivera, God bless him, drafted a long snapper a couple years ago in the 6th round, 7th round, Cheeseborough. Absolutely terrible.
Cheeseborough. That was his name?
Yeah. And he was a big issue.
God.
He was a big problem. And then it's just funny how Ron Rivera made a big, you need a long snapper. We got one of the best. And he was absolutely terrible.
Cheeseburger.
Cheeseburger.
Old cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Sounds
So my big takeaway from this, Alex, I'm going to be very tempered in this because, again, I'm a real Redskins fan. I've been here. It's free agency. We get excited. It's an upgrade. Don't get me wrong. I feel like we've done a good job upgrading from what we had, but we really don't know what we have.
Sure.
We'll see.
So just to make you feel better about it,
Okay.
I'll be the good cop. I counted, and I don't have the special teams guy on my list. I stopped counting. I stopped counting when it stopped mattering.
Jeremy Reeves.
So I've got Mariota, Eckler, Farrell, Allegretti, McManus, Luvu, Badass, Ertz, Armstrong, Chin, Fowler, Wagner, Crowder. Okay. Crowder's going to be a starting slot receiver this year. That's my guess.
You really think so?
As a starting slot. Yeah. To start off.
Okay.
You're going to have Wagner as a starter.
Yeah, for sure.
Jeremy Chen's your starter at safety.
Mm-hmm.
Doris Armstrong's a starter. Zach
Mm-hmm.
Ertz is a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Badass is a starter. That's his name now. Frankie Louvu, starter.
Oh, for sure.
Brandon McManus, starter. Austin Eckler, starter. At a minimum, I'm sorry, and Nick Allegretti, starter. You almost brought in a whole side of the ball to your team
Oh, yeah.
as starters. Now, the fill-in's going to be the splash you got was I think 2 places, Wagner and technically Louvu, but they're not going to consider that a splash. It's going to be Jeremy Chin is another one.
Why not? Why
and
not
Faulkner.
Louvu? I mean,
Because no one's going to consider it a splash. His name's not popular enough. That's what I mean. What I mean splash is just like on the surface, like surface level, not that important. But
God, that's crazy.
Teams aren't.
You're
not going to bring in names. That's the thing. Your guys are doing it smart. The teams that chase a bunch of names tend to fail. Watch what happens at Jacksonville.
The teams that chase names should be the teams that are almost there. Those are the ones that be chasing it because maybe they're missing a piece or here.
Well, sometimes they're chasing names that are like past the prime.
Well, that's a different story. But if you might be in a position where you have a great team set up. You're just missing this one piece to really get you over the hump there.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to pay this person, and it's going to be a big splash. We're not there. I mean, we're at the bottom. I want us to be competitive where we beat the team that we're supposed to beat because we can't even do that. Think about our last season, and
splash is coming though. You have to spend a certain amount of money.
We do. Well, we actually don't. And I was going to bring that up too. I looked that up. So, and I didn't know this, Alex, but I guess teams are the money that they have to spend. It's over a 3-season period.
Okay. So it's not a 1-season deal where you have to spend a certain percentage of the cap.
No, and we're actually in our 3rd year of that. So because we've already spent so much the first 2 years, we actually don't need to spend any of it. So
how much of it can you roll though? Because there's a whole question with it.
Because
we all of it.
Yeah, because we spent enough. Now the other thing that I didn't think of that somebody mentioned on a podcast is, and I don't know what the new number is for what we have left. I want to guess maybe 50, 60.
Let's say 50. Something. It's probably 50.
But the money that we have to pay, like Jaden Daniels, for example, or Drake May, that's guaranteed money that you also have to pay when you draft at the number 2 spot.
Keep in mind, this is a unique question. People are like, well, we need $8 million to sign our draft picks, right? Which is not necessarily true. So they use the top 51 cap hits that roll into the year. Okay. That's what you have to stay under. So the back end guys that are the 51st player, right? He makes like $400,000 a year. If you have a 7th round pick that replaces him, right? How much money are you losing? Nothing. It's even, right? Because that guy's probably making $700,000 too, right?
Right.
So that doesn't cost you any money. Also, these guys often take the spot of other people, and the cost of a veteran is more expensive than a rookie 9 times out of 10, other than your quarterback, right? So yours might be a little bit more that you need to do, right? But typically, like Buffalo, for instance, we really just need to set aside $4 million roughly for like 8 picks, okay? Or maybe even more than that. This depends. With you guys, you might need to set aside $6 or $7 million because the first year cap hit's usually lower, and because of the way that you're literally just replacing one guy with another. If that makes any sense. So like Brissett, your rookie's going to eat the money up he probably would have had, right? So a lot of it is to set aside. You don't need to set aside quite as much as you think when it comes down to it late, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think you still have to consider.
You have to allocate, but you don't need that much
allocate, and then the budget too. I mean, again, it went back to what I had mentioned on the previous one: is the Commanders don't necessarily have all this money of it, even though they have cap space. They're not raking in the dough.
Oh, you mean like actual money?
Actual money,
not monopoly money that they play with.
Right.
Yeah.
So that comes into play too. So I think that but again, I think the way they're doing it is the right way. They're spending money, but they're not going crazy, and they're thinking longer term. They're thinking draft picks, and then in a couple years, once they have those, then that's when they're really going to spend some money. That's what I would assume.
Right. Okay.
The other thing I had to mention, it's really funny. We had Ron Rivera, who's super defense centric, linebacker. Jack Del Rio, linebacker. Think about the terrible linebacker play that we've had over the last 3 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the guys that we literally just brought in, and we haven't even started the season yet. The difference the linebacker talent that we have compared to the last 3 years. It really is crazy to me.
So
Um,
it's weird. This is a good conversation or good little point. Is I wonder like why? Is it because of Snyder? Or in now team now they're like, yeah, let's go play for the Harris, but like we didn't want to play for Snyder, and that's why you couldn't recruit guys because you had money last year, right?
I think part of it is it's not completely Rivera's fault because the difference between Dan Quinn and Rivera is Dan Quinn is just a head coach. Rivera had to wear 2 hats. He had to wear that general manager hat too, which he's terrible at.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to make other big picture decisions as far as like, okay, who's the quarterback? And we had a terrible roster that he inherited, and he's trying to fill everything. And I think linebacker just was like not a priority because of all the other things that he had to handle and he wasn't capable of handling.
Interesting.
That's why I take it. Okay. So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I thought it was just like players didn't want to come to Washington because of Snyder, and the team wasn't very good.
Well, that is true. I mean, don't
now
get me wrong.
They're like Harris is an NBA owner.
No.
They're starting
I don't
over
think
and be part of this.
That's 100%. I should have said yes when you said that because that 100% is an issue. Nobody wanted to come here with Dan Snyder as the owner. Nobody, even with Ron Rivera, who's a respected guy, blah blah blah, but nobody wanted to come here because of him. So with him gone, and I think these new players, the players that are coming to us, they love the idea. Chin even said this, of being able to create a culture themselves. They're part of it. And they've been in the league. They're all really good at what they do. And they love the idea they can come in with Quinn, they can come in with Joe Witt, and they can create a culture that hasn't been here.
Yeah.
And excel. And that's what, So we've got all these guys because of that.
Let Adam Peters cook.
Let him cook, man. That's what we hear, right?
Yeah. Brandon Beane's in there. Big baller Bean.
Yeah.
Paying too much for wide receivers. We have no cap space. $3 million.
No cap, man. No cap.
No cap. It's no lie. I don't know where that comes from.
Me neither.
It's the dumbest saying I've ever seen. I get some of them, but not that one.
Yeah, that's
so. You got anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so, man.
Pretty good. All right. So next week I'm going to do a mock draft this weekend. My wife is working all weekend because St. Patty's Day. So I'm going to do a mock draft 2.0 at some point.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what you have to say with things that have transpired. Obviously, a couple of different changes means you have to make some different decisions. So, yeah.
Yep. So be on the look at that. I'll probably drop it Sunday. And then next week, we want to do a quarterback ranking quiz. It brings the faces on the screen. I don't know if you've seen it out there, and you click one. You're like, it comes up and says, Josh Allen or Tua, and you're like,
am I hot or not?
Tua,
quarterbacks.
And then it brings up like Bryce Young, and then you're like Bryce Young, and it goes down. It comes up, and then at the end, the system ranks it for you based on your choices. And you and I can discuss out. Derek wants to do it too. I don't know if Derek's schedule's so weird. But what we could probably do is hopefully get 3 of us to do it. Maybe we'll get somebody else.
Okay. Are we going to do just one and then we're all going to give a consensus? Or
we're just going to do one and we're going to talk it like each time. There's going to be somebody on the screen and you're going to be like Josh Allen versus Pat Mahomes. And you're going to be like, I want Pat Mahomes. And I'm going to say probably the same thing. And then Pat wins. And then the next one ends up being, it could be Bryce Young and Tua. And then it's like the next one comes up and then it's like,
okay. But we're just
Mariota. Yeah.
Doing our own separate.
No, we're going to go together and see who we think the best quarterbacks are. And then it does a big ranking on your screen. You can see it. So, so it's just fun, more than anything else. If any other cool signings happen, maybe we'll do that too next week. And then we'll do a panel mock draft when we get closer to the draft. I know we're 5 weeks away, but I want to get a group together, like I said, where we can do trades and things like that. And I want free agency to set a little bit before we do that, so we know like where teams are going. At least get a better idea. I'm
just gonna give a hot take here. I think the next time we come on here, Tyron Smith will be a Washington Commander.
Okay, and mine is I hope we bring a safety on. I don't know if we'll do it or not because they seem to be hesitant about it, but hopefully that'll be the case for us by that point. But we'll see. So I'll talk about it on my mock before my mock draft if it happens before then. And same thing with yours with Tyron Smith. Tyron Smith is taking his time. So
yeah.
All right. Make sure everybody to subscribe, notification bell, which lets you know when our videos pop up, like and comment, and we will see you next time.